Welcome to a football show, Monday edition. And yes, we are back in our studio, the Cast Collective at the heart of Music Row. At the heart of Nashville on Music Row. At Cast_Collective, our wonderful studio here. This is a football show. My name is Braden Gall. His name is Zach Lyons, of course. You can follow him on Twitter at FWordsPod. You can follow him. You can listen to him on the FWordsPod, Broadway Sports Media, all that great stuff. You, of course, can make sure you're checking out all the other great shows across the 440 Sports Network, as we've got lots of things to discuss in the college football world, the Predators, Nashville SC, all that great stuff across the platform. And, of course, our title sponsor on the show, the Kingston Group. BuildKG.com is the website. If you have a big decision coming with your house, hundreds of thousands of dollars, Zach, I don't know why you wouldn't make a decision with all the information. So make sure you do that by talking to the Kingston Group. Just have a conversation with them. You will be better off because you did that. So I promise you.
It's only a conversation. That's all you need.
Yeah, yes.
Just a conversation.
Just a chat, and you will be smarter, and you'll make better decisions for your house. So today on the show, we're going to have, we spend a lot of time, because OTAs are going to start tomorrow on Tuesday, and we spent a lot of time talking about Derrick Henry. I don't imagine Derrick Henry will be there for the Titans at OTAs on Tuesday.
Oh, no.
He's getting his master's degree now, Zach. People are going to lose their minds. But the point is, we spent a lot of time on Thursday's episode really diving into sort of what Derrick Henry is going through from a decline standpoint, not on the field necessarily, but just the state of running backs and what the Titans have to do, decision-making. So that's going to be on tomorrow with OTAs. So go listen to that. Today on the show, our Titans deep dive is going to be all about year number 2 players. We're going to dive into that whole draft class from 2021 and take a look at what they could do in year number 2 moving forward, because there's a lot of opinions out there about Dylan Radins and about all these other, Caleb Farley, a lot of panicking that's already setting in, Zach. So we're going to dive deep into year 2 expectations, exactly how good were they in year 1 and what they should look like in year 2. Some more fallout from Jimbo Fisher and Nick Saban, the gift that keeps on giving, of course. Jimbo Fisher and Nick Saban, some more fallout from that. Really, I think, Zach, now it's what does it mean big picture as the SEC coaches head down to Destin for media days, or not media days, but the Destin spring meetings as they do each and every week.
And who's next? Who is going to be the next duo of coaches that are going to be meeting each other in a cage fight over the NIL recruiting?
Can I give you what I would like to see?
Yes.
I would like to see Mike Leach and Lane Kiffin. Really,
that would be good.
Really enter this nonsensical cage match of ridiculous stupidity.
The question would be, does Mike Leach even really care about any of this drama? Probably not. Lane Kiffin does, but probably not.
But Lane Kiffin, what's interesting about Lane Kiffin, if you know Lane Kiffin, he is this wrestling personality in front of the camera, but he's really not like that at all when you get him off the camera. He's just kind of like this, oh yeah, we're going to run some plays. Like, he's actually this really weird, chill dude. But anyway, that's beside the point. There's going to be a lot of fireworks, and we'll have it all covered for you, of course, on the Thursday edition. But we got to start today, Zach. By the way, tell everybody to get involved, what buttons they should push, all that
Go
good stuff.
To the 440 Sports YouTube page, click on the little bell that gives you notifications that whenever we go live, you'll be let known on your phone, or on your device, on your TV. And then you can go to the YouTube page and you can interact with us in the comments and, just join in on the discussion. We got a lot to talk about. We need some input from our audience, and we would love to hear from you.
Yes, all the comments and questions, we will, of course, respond to each and every one of those. And again, if you'd like to book the Cast Collective space, this wonderful, beautiful studio we are sitting in now that you are back off IR, good to have you.
Yes.
Make sure you can check them out on Instagram at Cast_Collective DM. Slide up into the DMs, and they'll make sure they'll talk to you about what
I'm being told that apparently I look like I'm excited to speak to a group of teenagers about the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
Because of the hoodie?
I guess it's because of the hoodie. I guess Corey Miller is a fashionista who says that this is...
I think you look fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's athletic wear. Maybe get outside and go to the gym, Corey.
Touch some grass, as the kids like to say these days, right? Go touch some grass. I think the hoodie's an interesting choice, considering it's still 72 degrees and humid.
But it's windy, the rain, so this is something that gets wet and it easily dries. I'm a man that thinks ahead.
You're from Alabama. That makes sense. I've been in Nashville for 27 years. And I still have to wear the cotton disappears in the summer for me. It's all
this is even.
All
I mean,
polyester.
maybe a cotton blend or something. I don't know what it is.
I can't. I have to
look at tags.
If I could wear dry fit every part of my body for the entire summer, I would do it. Okay,
this is what this is.
All right,
it's all dry fit.
So humidity in this city is stupid. So are almost all of the people and media in this town. Not to broad brush the entire city and national media too, because this stadium debate, and we're not going to get into like what astroturfing means. We can if we need to. Gaslighting these terms about like how we
is astroturfing. Gaslighting about, is that a term? I haven't heard this term. Or you just
you never heard astroturfing as a term?
As a term for gaslighting, is that what you're doing?
So they're basically the same thing, but two different executions of a strategy.
Oh, okay.
So astroturfing, not to get too political
Let's
here.
get into this astroturfing thing.
If you got a card in the mail in Nashville a couple years ago, whenever the transit bill was up for a vote, right?
Gotcha,
And you got the card in the mail that was like, this is going to underserve your community, blah, 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 all these bullet points. And at the very bottom, it was like paid for by outside companies, which were the Koch brothers, basically at that point, which was outside billionaires from other states getting involved in our politics. That's astroturfing. That is them getting involved and trying to spin an issue for their best interests. And this is what's happening right now with a couple of groups in Nashville, and some national media are doing this, but I think they're just stupid. So I think some people have an agenda, because right now we have the Titans and the city. And the Titans and the city are in a deep negotiation for what the stadium is going to look like, how they're going to pay for it, all this stuff. So when you see information, it's either PR or astroturfing. You're getting there's communication messages that are out there. And of course, Burke Nihil, the president of the Titans, had a big meeting on Thursday with the media, answered some questions. And even the numbers he gave us, you have to go, okay, that's coming from one side of the equation. So essentially, and I don't know where we've talked about this before, Zach, so I don't know where we need to like specifically start this, but the national media, and if you read an article.
Well, let's start with this
so
PFT article.
Yes.
You're talking, listen, Pro Football Talk, Mike Florio, who is a lawyer, by the way, who should know the ins and outs of this. Don't pay attention to anything about the Tennessee Titans when it comes to Pro Football Talk. That's where I'm at right now.
I think that's okay.
Pro Football Talk is persona non grata for me. I do not care about anything that they say when it comes to the Tennessee Titans, because they're constantly wrong, right? And he is a former lawyer who specializes on producing fear, producing sensationalism, and ruining $100 worth of steaks. Just one steak.
Oh, that's
and listen, you can eat however you want to your Wagyu steak, but at least cook it properly. I mean, even if you want it medium, that wasn't even medium. That was well done on the outside and rare on the inside. It made no sense. He ruined it.
If you don't know what we're talking about, go look it up.
To me, he puts out this thing saying that, basically that the Titans are asking the taxpayers to shoulder the biggest burden of the new deal, which is not true. And he's just saying that because he wants to get clicks. He wants to get people in a discussion and talking about it. What's also not true is a fan, London Titan, that I keep seeing respond to all these Twitter things saying that the Titans are going to be putting out $1.7 billion. Where did you even find that number anywhere? Like, you're in London. I would sit this one out.
So the astroturfing that's happening is when you see if you see a video on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, and you see like a line of parents like lined up outside of a school, and all the parents are like or a daycare, and they're all trying to log in or line up to get their kid into a thing, and all of a sudden you see the commentary. It's like, can't get proper daycare in the city of Nashville, but we can spend $2 billion on a stadium. That is astroturfing. Because they are not related. This is the most important part, and Florio set it up for us on a tee with that article, because at the very end of the article, he says, well, you can either spend $1.9 billion of taxpayer dollars, or you can spend $1.9 billion of taxpayer dollars.
That seems to be a big confusion.
And
that
it's not
those
true.
are separate entities and separate budgets and all that kind of stuff.
So once and for all, if you would like to educate yourself on this, this is the show you need. This is the only show you need, because no one else.
And we've done this before.
Yes, and we're gonna have to do it again. So we'll
probably have to do it again.
Right. Here is what the situation is. And if you have questions, please chime in. We'd be happy to answer them for you. So the Metro Nashville Sports Authority is on the hook for any renovations that are done, some of which are owed in arrears. Some of them they owe currently to the Titans. Apparently the cement concrete is crumbling at Titan Stadium, according to the president.
It's one of the worst stadiums in the NFL. I mean, it's not as bad as Buffalo, but Buffalo's getting a new stadium. It's not as, I think, Houston's kind of boring to me.
Yes.
But I mean, that's a whole different scenario and stuff. But this is one of the more poorly constructed stadiums because it's falling apart.
So anything that the city or the Titans anybody that wants to do anything that costs any dollar figure to fix the Titan Stadium, we as Davidson County Metro taxpayers have to pay for that. That is in the negotiation. It's already been in writing. It's in the lease. So now Nihil put out some numbers. He said 945 million, and then he said there's like another 894 million. There's been some pushback, rightly so, on whether or not those numbers are accurate because they're estimates on what it would take to renovate the stadium. So that's okay. Here's what you don't need to care about, the dollar figure. Just know it's a big sum of money and that right now we have to pay for it. We are on the hook legally to pay for it. Otherwise, the Titans can break the lease and leave. That's it. Now, what we are trying to do is transfer those obligations financially to the Tennessee Titans and create revenue to build the new stadium, which again is about the same cost as a renovation. Now, here's where it does get complicated, and I understand people's eyes glaze over when you start talking about bonds and you start explaining revenue bonds versus general obligation bonds. But just think of it this way. The city has X amount of dollars that they have to pay for everything.
Right. Sewers,
parks, police officers, firefighters, education, whatever. Like things that the sewers, potholes. Come on, Coop, with the potholes. Like that kind of stuff. That is our general fund, our city's general fund.
Basically, dodging a pothole in Nashville right now is like dodging a banana peel in Mario Kart. It is going to cause many wrecks of people just and yes. Let me say this. If you're visiting us from out of town and you miss a turn, we almost had someone hit us when we were coming on Broadway, me and my wife did. And because they were going down West End, they're at the split.
Oh, yeah.
They just circle and just swerve right over. You can get to the Broadway street from West End by just turning down a side street. I swear to God, you'll be fine. Please do not kill people.
Oh, my God. Okay, where was I yelling about? I was yelling about the general fund versus... So this is what you need to understand. Right now, we could be on the hook for anywhere between $1.5 and $2 billion in renovations. That is already legally agreed upon. So what they're trying to do is create a new agreement where all of that shifts to the Titans, but future and cost overruns shift to the Titans. But more importantly, when Florio writes those two numbers in that story and says taxpayer dollars, that's not right. That's not factually accurate, and it needs context. The context on the new rules, and we don't know the final numbers, but when you increase a motel tax by 1%, for example, which is what they're going to do,
right?
They estimate about $15 million in new revenue. So it is found money. That money doesn't exist. It's not budgeted for anything. It's a different bucket of cash. It's not the bucket of cash that we are all worried about taking care of our teachers and our firefighters and our policemen and our roads and our sewers and our parks. That's all different stuff. So what they are going to do, just like the soccer stadium, is put these revenue bonds out, which the city is on the hook for in terms of debt, but major metropolitan areas are in the business of debt. That's what they do. Like when we build the Music City Center, that's what we do.
Right.
And so what they're going to do is it's siphoned off from our general fund. So if my kids' teachers want to raise, this doesn't affect that. This doesn't affect you, the police officer that wants a raise.
And listen,
it doesn't affect anything that keeps our city going at all.
Can I say something about that tweet? Because I saw that tweet, and these are helicopter parents and affluent parents who are choosing this particular backed up daycare specialist. There are plenty of daycare places that you could go to. You just aren't comfortable with those places. You're going to this particular one.
That's complicated. You're opening up a big can of worms there. As someone with two kids in daycare, and
well, let me say something. I have friends who have kids that could never get a babysitter because they just didn't trust people. Like, give me a break. I had babysitters all the time. And this is the same thing. You're just finding a babysitter during the day.
So if we decide to spend $400 million, hypothetically, on a tax diversion revenue bond that is going to be generated by all the new development in this area, right? If somebody from out of town comes into a game or somebody comes and goes to a hotel there or whatever, we're going to generate new money, new revenue that doesn't exist if this wasn't developed, if the city and the stadium weren't there. It's exactly like the soccer stadium. There will be an upfront cost by the city, which I guess for the soccer stadium was about $50 million, right? You actually have to build roads. You actually have to do stuff that actually affects the city long term. The point is they are not connected. They're two different funds, and they don't affect teachers and firefighters and police officers. They don't at all. It's this other thing over here that's a separate bucket of money that it blows my mind that somebody responsible and who's a lawyer can write something like that and then connect things that aren't connected at all, because all of this money is found money right now. The question is going to be, and I'm willing to bet you, as we get closer to a deal, you're going to see John Cooper, the mayor, out there on a tour. You know how when somebody writes a book, they got to go out there and do like the book tour, or a movie's coming out and you got to go out and do the movie tour. This is what they're going to be close to a deal. And then you're going to see John Cooper's face everywhere. You're going to see him on, you're going to hear him on radio shows. You're going to hear him on maybe one of 440's podcasts. We've reached out. So
you never know.
I
think he's going to be on radio this week.
He's going to be everywhere. And it's going to start because he's trying to sell us on the terms of the deal. Just like the Titans are trying to sell us on the terms of the deal. Here's the last thing that anybody needs to know, because I'm sorry, I hate this so much, but I love it at the same time. The amount of, like, they both need the deal. The Titans don't want to leave. They don't want to do that.
The deal's going to get done. I don't. It's one of those things where I'm just like, I don't know why everybody's stressing out over the deal. Now, these numbers that Burke Nihill came out with make sense from a standpoint of how much it would actually cost, because that's what they've been saying the whole time. It would cost this much money, and it makes no fiscal sense to spend and try to repair what's already broken beyond repair. And they said that from the very beginning. And guess what? They finally got the numbers. Numbers backed it up. They've pretty much everything is going to be taken care of by the majority of other people, I would say. But like you're talking about, NFL's putting in about probably 2 to 250 million on top of the 700 million, which is now being directly contributed.
Well, so far that looks like it's baked into that number.
No, not from what I'm seeing.
But we're not sure yet.
Then from what I'm seeing now, that's I think that's going to be an additional a little bit of money. And then on top of that, I think that you're mainly letting the tourists pay for it for the most part. I mean, the bulk of the money is not what PFT said. Pro Football Talk, Mike Florio said that the bulk of the money is going to be put on the fans and the taxpayers.
Yes.
And I don't think that's not true.
Which is factually untrue.
It's factually incorrect.
Now, here's what people do need to understand. There will be a chunk of money at the end of the entire deal. There will be a chunk of money that does affect Nashville's general fund.
Right.
But that is going to be tied to building a road from Oracle all the way through the stadium down to Murfreesboro Pike so that you can get to the airport, and will be a part of our city for 100 years.
Right.
So that, just like, think about the soccer stadium. It was $300 million with a $50 million upfront cost to the city that wasn't refunded through bonds and revenue stuff and all this other complicated stuff. And I think Cooper actually negotiated that down to about 30, give or take. That percentage is about right. 1/6 of the cost is going to fall on Tennessee, Nashville Metro taxpayers, but that will be spent on infrastructure. That will not be spent on hotels and the fight that's coming, which we've talked about. The fight that will come from this is going to be city council people that want that development to be, that money in that development, that $2 billion or $3 billion we're spending on development. The fight is going to be, how does it all get developed? Does it get developed to help some Nashvillians? Affordable housing, green space, parks, roads, bridges, maybe public transit, God forbid, those kinds of things. Versus, is it just going to help the big business owners who own all the hotels or whatever? So that is going to be the debate. Just when you see $1.9 billion for taxpayers in Davidson County, just laugh, because it's not what it is. Right now, there is $0. $0 right now in the plan are currently being asked of Davidson County taxpayers. So far, that number will be something at some point, but right now it is a big fat freaking zero.
That's right.
It's so frustrating like reading this stuff. It's complicated, but it's not that complicated.
It's also, I think that the by and large, I think Nate Rao's doing a good job with it. I think Teresa Walker's doing a good job with it. Both of you be followed on Twitter. I think by and large, I think people that are joining in on the conversation with a microphone in front of them or with a camera in front of them really don't know as much as you do where the money's coming from, or as much as where Nate and these other people that are reporting it and reporting it correctly. Those are the people you need to listen to, not the people that are in New York overcooking their steaks. Don't listen to that guy.
Now, 2 quick notes, though, from Nihill that I thought were interesting that we can wrap up this conversation and move on. The two notes that weren't like sort of budgetary related, although I guess kind of. One of them was that the fixed roof is significantly cheaper than the retractable roof, which I think
makes sense.
Makes
I mean, you got motors and all that kind of stuff, electronics, gears.
Makes total sense. But I thought this number was fascinating. He said, and this can tell you, this is all about reading the tea leaves, right? They're telling you where they're thinking here. He said that retractable roofs across the board are open about 3% of the time.
That makes sense.
So
when you think about it.
So are we okay with a fixed roof then?
I was okay either way. I mean, I know that there are a small contingent of fans that are going to be upset that you don't get the outdoor feel and all this kind of stuff. I mean, if you need that, just have a kid and go to their football games. I mean, I don't know what to tell you, because it makes sense to just have a permanent dome for so many reasons, and I don't know, open up something else, or maybe just let sun shine through. I don't know.
No, you can architecturally you could design it to where there's lots of airflow, lots of natural light, lots of that.
If fresh air is the deciding factor, the sounds of birds and traffic and sirens are deciding factor of you enjoying a game or not, you need to reevaluate yourself, because that has nothing to do with the enjoyment of football game. The product on the field has to do with the enjoyment of football game. The people in the seats have the power to make a football game more enjoyable.
So this is also how you could boil it down. You're a Davidson County taxpayer. You're concerned about how much it could cost. Fair, totally fair. If it's $2.2 billion for a retractable roof and $2 billion for a fixed roof, well, that $200 million might be the $200 million they're putting on the taxpayer. So if you're willing to just say, I'll take the fixed roof and and like the field turf, like the nice stuff,
right?
There's a way to save $200 million or whatever the number is, like right there, right out of the gate. So I think we're headed for a fixed roof with a largely privately funded, and again, private's a weird word because it's not technically private money, but it's not really public money either. You need to read the fine print on this, but I thought that was interesting. So I think fixed roof is probably where we're going to end up. And I think it's going to run from Oracle to all the way to Murfreesboro Pike. So
I mean, having it covered just makes so much sense. And so I don't care how it's covered after that point. Just got to have it covered.
There you go. Okay. If you have any questions, at FWordsPod, at Braden Gall, I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the funding of this stadium. But just know right now, we're at about $1.2, $1.3 billion in funding for this new stadium, and not one penny of it is new taxpayer spending. Just that's all you need to know.
Right.
So far. It will come eventually, but so far we're not there yet. Okay.
Let's talk to the Saban stuff.
Please, for the love of God, anything else?
Let's switch to the aftermath behind the Saban versus Fisher, I guess Royal Rumble, if you want to call it.
So good.
Let's start off with Saban coming out and giving out a kind of one of those apologies where you're like, well, I'm sorry that you were offended.
Right.
Because maybe it's a misstep to call out people by name and specifically, but did he say anything wrong?
No.
Incorrect? And we'll get to who else agrees with that. But that's what we said on the show on Thursday was actually it all panned out.
There wasn't anything that he said that was factually incorrect.
Right.
Mike Florio should take notes.
Yes.
There was nothing in there. Now, as we said on Thursday, you cannot use the phrase bought his entire team. You have to know that's kind of incendiary when you're the biggest, most powerful coach in the history.
He was
of the game.
also in 5 minutes into a 7-minute rant.
This
stuff just goes.
I know.
It just goes.
So Fisher and I've had some time to think it through, and I think we were pretty. I don't think I would change much of what we said on Thursday. I think most of it was in the moment going, look, these are two egos with a lot of faux out. I think you used the term faux outrage.
Yeah,
there's a lot of that happened with this. I think the most important thing that people need to know about a lot of posturing and yelling at each other is that the future, very clearly that the future of college football as it is constructed today is unsustainable. That's really what's at the root of all of this, is that Saban's well, we can't be doing this. And Fisher's over here going, well, we can, but blah, 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 blah. And then Lane Kiffin's with popcorn. The Big Ten doesn't know what's going on. Texas and Oklahoma want to join. There's playoff expansion. There's the portal. There's all this stuff. The bottom line is it's unsustainable.
Right.
And what's going to happen because it's unsustainable is stuff like this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you really get down to it, everybody, I think almost every coach agrees across the NCAA. I would almost venture that you'd get pure unanimous support behind regulations and whether or not lack of them is going to be sustainable for college football and college football's health. I think you'd be very hard pressed to find anybody, because even you left off a name and I brought him up multiple times. Deion Sanders 2 or 3 weeks ago talked about that this was going to be unsustainable and how it's going to kill small school programs pretty much instantly. And I look at it, I get that the apology should have been out there, but the more I think about it, the more I think that Saban should have really just stuck to his guns and say, "Look, if that guy wants to be sensitive over there in Texas A&M, he can't be man enough to pick up a phone because he's afraid or whatever he is."
A&M are in their feelings right now.
They're way in their feelings,
for sure.
and that's fine. That's fine with me. But at this point, what I said was true. What I said was very level-headed. Someone said that it was someone from the Athletic said that he went off, or a fiery rant is how they described it. And if you watched it, that is not a fiery rant. You want to see a fiery rant, you turn on an Alabama game when a ref does something screwed up. That is a fiery rant. That was a very methodical, laid-back answer of a guy that was just talking. He was just talking and just let it all out. And maybe there was a little bit of underlying frustration, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's really. There was nothing he should apologize for, and I think that if anything, Fisher's just kind of a baby.
If he didn't say the phrase Texas A&M or Jackson State, literally just didn't use those words, I think by and large you would have seen very little reaction to this. I think most coaches would have come out, and this is what we joked about even on Thursday. It's like, dude, in your press conference, Jimbo, you said that you agreed with him,
right?
Like even while you're yelling at each other, you both said that you agreed that there needs to be some sort of uniform regulation. So again, all of this stems from the lack of uniform regulation,
right?
Which is just where we are in college football. And I think that they're going to all meet this week in Destin. Well, I think we're going to see
next week, right?
End of this week and then next week. I think we're going to see things like divisions go away. And I think this will be a heavy focus. What are we doing here with this?
Will they kiss and make up at?
So this is
a thing.
I hope not. Just as a
right. Selfishly, we hope that this thing continues and it gets worse, and we hope that there is some kind of like in Captain America Civil War, the movie.
You're gonna lose me on this.
Well, you have kids. How do you not watch Marvel movies?
The 4-year-old can't watch Marvel movies
Why
yet.
not?
She can't. She gets scared by Star Wars.
Oh, this is
my 5-year-old loves like Pirates of the Caribbean and Star Wars, and it's a little like it pushes the boundaries on like terrifying that.
Like your kids cannot go see Multiverse of Madness, which is the newest Doctor Strange movie, but they can watch almost all previous Iron Man.
So I tried. So it's funny you mentioned Iron Man because I love Iron Man. I tried, and I'm not a big comic movie guy, but you are, and I like Iron Man. I tried to get her to watch Iron Man. The very first scene in the very first Iron Man movie is like a bunch of dudes getting their heads blown off in like Afghanistan. My wife was like, "What the hell are you doing showing this to the 5-year-old?" So,
hey, listen.
And I'm not one of those parents that like I don't put the like I'm not trying to protect her from everything. I think she needs to see stuff, and
I saw Jurassic.
We don't listen to that Disney shit.
I saw Jurassic Park when I was 7, and I think
they like Jurassic Park.
Yeah, well, that's worse than.
You think so?
Yeah, that's scarier. I mean, I don't know about these new Jurassic
Only when
Park
he's
the originals.
Only when he reaches into the bathroom and like tears the guy's head off. Yeah, she was kind of like, "Whoa, T-Rex." Yeah. So maybe I can push the boundary and get her into the universe.
I'm anxious to see if other coaches pick sides and there is a internal civil war among the SEC coaches.
So this brings us to Greg Sankey and what he said,
right?
Which is the public reprimand of both coaches. Which I even think personally, like he has to do it. He doesn't want coaches out there saying, "Go investigate this cheater." No, you go investigate that cheater. Like that's not good for business. He doesn't want that. But you know what is good for business? Coaches yelling at each other and just being angry in general. I think the reprimand even felt disingenuous because if I'm the SEC, you're in the middle of NFL draft rookie camp, NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, the PGA Championship in Tulsa over the weekend at Southern Hills, all these big events in American sports. And what did we talk about last week?
Saban versus
It was
Fisher.
All SEC football. So don't tell me he wasn't happy about the attention that they got. Again, I think all the ins and outs and the details are fascinating, but a lot of it is just much to do about nothing. This is all about the unsustainability of our current situation in college football and how it has to change.
Let me ask you a question because Bruce Feldman, and I forget who else it was in the Athletic, put out an article this morning saying that normally when you get asked a question or you ask someone in the SEC a question about Nick Saban possibly retiring, it's met with an eye roll. Now it is, and I think I brought this up last week or maybe just you and I talking about if Nick Saban were to win this year, would he retire? And now there's no eye rolls. There could be him retiring. I want to take this one step further. A little conspiracy theory.
Oh, go for it.
Greg Sankey becomes the face of NIL regulations for the entire college football, and SEC Commissioner Nick Saban happens.
First of all, I love it. I talked to somebody 3 weeks ago, close to the Alabama program, that said that he's not anywhere close to retiring.
I just don't think he is. So, I mean, I agree. I think he's going to at least play out the full contract and may get another contract, or may even try to go Michigan State. Who knows?
Now he's softened. He became a grandfather. The tornadoes, that whole thing. I think the pandemic. I mean, he's becoming a slightly different personality. Like having the stance on voting rights is pretty unusual for him when he signed that letter to Joe Manchin, the senator from West Virginia, about like, hey, can you support this Voting Rights Act? I think he is kind of becoming more comfortable in like having this other persona outside of just this badass rock star football coach. I don't think he wants to give that up anytime soon, because he knows, and really what this, I think we said this on Thursday too, what he was really doing in that quote was threatening the rest of college football. Everything he says is a threat. If you don't fix this problem, if you don't give us an adjustment on this issue, I will murder you with it.
I don't know.
That is what he says every time.
Like maybe he's campaigning for life after football. He's I think
I'll vote for him.
Listen, Greg Sankey becomes the head of the
commissioner of the NCAA, commissioner of the college football playoff.
Whatever you want to call it. And then you add in Saban as SEC commissioner. Oh boy, that would be delightful.
I would have no problem with that. Although how about this? What about Sankey stays as commissioner of the SEC and Saban just jumps him?
Oh man,
to be commissioner of college football.
I think that would be awesome, because I would love to see the reaction of people that he's just recently offended. First off, Deion Sanders and Jimbo Fisher, but then think about Dabo Swinney. He's over there in Clemson. The Pac-12,
By the way, funny that Dabo hasn't said a word about any of this, because he's so antiquated that he doesn't think any of this is what we're supposed to be doing.
Right.
Meanwhile, Jimbo's like, this is so legal. Why are y'all like, I'm not a criminal. This is so legal. Nick's like, this is legal, but like it's crazy. Dabo doesn't want any of it to happen.
The Auburn football coach is just down there just chilling like, hey, y'all don't remember me at all. I'm happy.
Did you see him tweet?
Oh no!
Oh my God! So this is one of my favorite things, and I got to credit Chris Marler from Saturday Down South on this. I was talking to him on Fringe Element podcast, by the way. Go rate, review, subscribe. He said, "Did you see Brian Harson's tweet?" And I said, "No." He goes, in the middle of the biggest public relations firestorm in like modern SEC history, the greatest press conference in the history of college football, in my opinion. He's over there tweeting, "Can't wait to get back to Jordan-Hare Stadium." Are you a human being? You're just like a robot over there who's under all kinds of pressure from boosters. So
who's next? I mean, is Dabo Swinney going to be the next guy that takes another big swing at the NIL in general, or maybe I don't know what recruiting classes are looking like for the ACC, but
so if Tennessee had a fiery coach, then I would think Josh Heupel would be the guy to do this, because he's got a collective that is up and running faster and better than almost anybody else other than maybe Texas A&M. But he's not that kind of, he's just such like an old dad. Like he's not really, and I say that complimentary as a middle-aged dad. Like
as an old dad yourself,
yes,
with your 2-day hangovers.
Can we go with middle-aged and not old just for a couple more years, please? Yeah, we can get to 2-day hangovers later on in the show. I don't like rain delays at soccer matches. How about that? It leads to poor decision-making. No, I think Heupel would be, if it would, God, I wish Jeremy Pruitt was still employed for the first time in my life. I've wished Jeremy Pruitt.
Or Butch Jones.
Butch Jones, yes. Butch Jones would step in it and put both feet in his mouth. Lane is calculatingly quiet on this stuff. Like he knows that he can like popcorn emoji and get people fired up about it. But like he knows that if you say anything, because every time Dabo has said anything, it's been the stupidest shit. It's like, I don't think these athletes should get paid. I can't believe the professionalization of the sport and lack of this and lack of that. And I'm like, Clemson's spending more money than anybody on this stuff. Like it's so Dabo doesn't. He's out of touch. So somebody at Tennessee would be the qualified one because of how big their collective is and how much money they're spending on acquiring talent. Texas is the one to watch.
Gotcha.
Texas is the one to watch because Steve Sarkisian and their collective, they're doing the same thing A&M is. They're raising all kinds of money.
Hey, they just lost to USC, that the Blitnikoff.
Yes,
winner.
Jordan Addison transferred from Pitt to USC, which there was some rumblings of tampering and all that stuff. But Texas, they know they're going to have to up their recruiting game to join the SEC in a couple years. They're big bad Texas, and they're watching A&M steal all the headlines. So I would watch out for Steve Sarkisian in Texas playing a role in the public feud that we're talking about here. That would be so good.
Would Jimbo Fisher have made these comments if he hadn't beat Nick Saban this last year?
I think that's a great point. We talked about he's
feeling himself.
Yes, they're all in their feelings. So last summer, I think it was, Saban said to Jimbo, "Hey, what are you going to do? Beat me on the golf course?" Like there was a kind of a one-liner where somebody asked Nick, like, "Hey, are you worried about A&M catching up or whatever? And they're gonna beat you this year?" And he's like, "Yeah, what do you mean on a golf course?" And then A&M went out and beat him.
Yeah.
And then they went out and beat him on the recruiting trail. And so Jimbo's clearly like, this is my time. This is my time to strike. I'm puffed out a little bit. I'm running around, feeling all cocky. I'm going to say some stuff because I feel it. And I think they're going to go to Tuscaloosa on October 8th and get curb stomped.
Let me ask you a question.
By Alabama.
Okay, so he goes and gets what would he have to lose by? How many points would he have to lose by and what would the final record need to be for them to fire Jimbo Fisher this year?
Never. Well, he's got a guaranteed contract, which is really weird. But they've developed so well as a program under him. They've recruited extremely well. They've spent tons of money. Like they're going to give him the opportunity. People forget A&M was 5th in the nation at the end of the season 2 years ago. They were one spot from the playoff. And I think everybody laughs at A&M as like this team that can't win the big one. And they've struggled to do that. But the year they beat Florida with Kyle Trask as the Heisman Trophy 2 years ago in 2020, they were the 5th best team in America. They almost made the playoff. And last year they beat Alabama. So he's doing things in College Station. They just need to finish the deal. And that's what they haven't been able to do is finish the job, beat the teams they're supposed to. They're going to be preseason top 7 or 8, though, this year. So they could be undefeated going to Tuscaloosa on October 8th. And if I'm ESPN or whoever's carrying, I think it's ESPN that's carrying that game, I would be running promos right now. Like I'm running, like game day's going to be there.
You know, if I was the NCAA, I would be shifting this to a primetime game week 1. I would open up with this game on primetime because if for whatever reason Texas A&M is not as good as what people think, then people are going to be less interested come the week in October, I believe it is.
October 8th, yeah.
October 8th.
It's already been, I think at the time, if you went and looked at the time on the game, I think it's already changed to TBD.
Yeah.
Which means they're going to flex it into either the 2:30 or the 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock time.
Yeah, because to me, I'm thinking that
it's going to be ugly, dude.
Yeah, it's going to be ugly. So you might want to put that at the very beginning.
I'm with you on the strategy. They don't have that ability. Because it's the school. The school's schedules are made like 25 years in advance. Wow. It's very stupid.
That is stupid.
So the aftermath. I think the most important takeaway again is just like with the Titan Stadium. Like there's this money and there's this money. With this it's not about what Jimbo says or what Nick says. It is about that we are in a time of chaos in college football where this is not going to last. The sport cannot survive like this for much longer. There's going to be changes. And my guess is that is a 40 or 50 team breakaway from the NCAA that ends up with 3 or 4 super conferences, and they're going to make their own rules. And if you want to go to an SEC school, you're going to make $40,000 a year. There'll be a salary cap, basically. I think that's the direction we're headed. And
there's obviously going to be a salary cap, and then there's obviously going to be people who hate that there's a salary cap, who don't understand economics, and that's okay. Not everybody has to have an economics degree to understand what is good for college football. That's what these other people that are in positions of power are for.
Yeah, not everybody's a capologist the way you are.
Yeah, well,
dead money.
Everybody could be me.
You know about dead money.
One of a kind.
You know about dead money, which brings us to the Tennessee Titans and year number 2. And obviously OTAs will start on Tuesday, a bit 9 a.m. or so. I don't know what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to just sort of like seeing where people are in their development, seeing who's there, even though like it doesn't matter if Derrick Henry's not there. But what I'm really interested in.
What if Derrick Henry showed up? That would just like destroy some national football or college or local football talk.
What is the deal though with like why?
Well, people are uncreative. Not everybody can come up with topics like we do.
Go on. So we want to take a deep dive and look at the last year's draft class, 2021 for the Tennessee Titans. Caleb Farley, Dylan Radins, Elijah Molden, Monte Rice, Dylan Fitzpatrick, Rashaad Weaver, Racey McMath, Brady Breeze. Peace out, Brady Breeze.
I also think you should include Naquan Jones.
That's fair too. Yes, actually, Naquan Jones is worthy of being discussed. So you want to go draft pick 1, Caleb Farley down to the bottom and just work through this. So what we'll do is we'll kind of set up, again, what happened, a quick little recap, and then what do we think is a reasonable expectation for these players moving forward. Caleb Farley played 3 games last year. We all know about the torn ACL. He played 60 snaps total on defense. He played 14 snaps total on special teams. Not the numbers you want out of your number 1 corner. I will say, watching him in camp, though, and this is a very kind of silly, but like I find it to be meaningful. Athletically, he is the most athletic-looking corner I have seen in my time covering the Titans. So in just camp drills and just like movement and size and speed and fluidity. Now, mentally, last year at camp, every single drill, he was being like pulled aside, set at the back with the defensive coaching staff saying, what do you see? Like he was working on mental reps a lot last year. But physically, every single tool is there. So if he's healthy, I think he's a really big asset.
Which for all intents and purposes, you're talking about a guy that's probably going to get one of those offseason awards for the defense. You know, they always do these offseason awards about who put in the work, who put in the effort, who's the leader on this team for the offseason, all that kind of stuff. And if one of them's not for Caleb Farley, I'd be totally surprised.
What was the date? I don't have the date in front of me. Was it like October 18th or something like that? I'm guessing here. You guys can correct me on the date he actually tore the ACL. Was it the Buffalo game, maybe? I can't remember.
Yes, I believe he went out the Buffalo game.
So 2/3 of the season he had to recover, and then the entire offseason. What are expectations in your mind for Caleb Farley?
Well, I think that you're wanting him to be the guy. You saw what Christian Fulton did last year. You want him to beat that. And because he is supposed to be the number one outside guy, shut down corner for all intents and purposes, for not only for this team, but he was supposed to be that guy in the NFL based on his draft stock, his prospect stuff. Now, I think when you look at what Christian Fulton did last year and the massive jump, which in a similar form and fashion, he got injured in midway point through last year or through 2020, and he comes back 2021, and he's pretty much outstanding. I think the only two wide receivers to give him real problems was Jamison Crowder when Christian Fulton got put in the slot in the Jets game due to injury. They put him in the slot, and it was a mismatch. Jamison Crowder kind of broke his ankles. And then Deebo Samuel, who just manhandled Christian Fulton.
And Deebo Samuel does that to all people normally.
So you're looking for Caleb Farley to be better than Christian Fulton. Now, that's maybe an unreasonable expectation, but I think that's an expectation you should have for a first-round draft pick who was considered a top 10 player at certain points during the draft cycle and probably the best corner in that draft. And he's healthy. You want him to stay healthy, and obviously, like I said, probably a little unrealistic. But at least if he matches Christian Fulton's production at the outside corner spot, I think you walk away feeling really good about year 3, like you are about Christian Fulton, and then you're feeling really good about the cornerbacks as a whole. Anyway,
I think it's one of the deepest cornerback rooms in the league, and one of the deepest I've seen for the Titans in a long time. I'll agree with you.
I think it's by far the deepest that the Titans have seen
from an upside talent standpoint. It's exceptional. I'll agree with you up until a point. I think what you want out of Caleb Farley is for him to be the clear number 2 behind Christian Fulton, but that it feels like you've got two guys,
like a 1A, 1B.
Yeah,
scenario.
like I think it might be a little unfair to ask him to be as good as Christian Fulton last year. Again, I think Fulton started 2 games his rookie season. He only played in 6. He started all 13 games he played in last year. He gave up like 51% completion percentage, which is like astonishingly good. 6.9 yards per target, I think, last year for Christian Fulton. I think if you can get, let's say 80% of Christian Fulton last year from Caleb Farley this year, meaning the signs are there that he is recovered, that he's back, and that he's the right guy that they selected. Maybe you don't get Christian Fulton level of elite production, but he's on his path to that. Does that make sense? So then you have Fulton at 1, Farley at 2, and you know who your cover corners are for the next couple of years.
I think I would be a little disappointed if Caleb Farley wasn't the one. The reason being is because you're talking about they kind of both have that same pedigree, right? They got drafted lower than what they should have. Christian Fulton at many points was a first-round pick who fell all the way into the second.
Yep.
And to me, I almost, in my mind at this point, I swap the Isaiah Wilson, Christian Fulton draft picks and treat Christian Fulton as as the first rounder and Isaiah Wilson as second rounder.
That's Evans and Landry.
Yeah, right.
They passed on Evans to get Landry later, and they probably should have gone the other day.
I don't want Farley to end up being the guy that we're talking in that scenario where they swapped. I want him to be Jeffrey Simmons, not Jason McCourty, I guess.
What if
Jason McCourty wasn't bad, but I want.
What if it takes 2 years to get to that, though?
And it may, but I think that if you're asking for 80% of what Christian Fulton was last year, I think that's a little low of expectation. I think he needs to match what Christian Fulton did.
Okay, I think that's fair. I mean, he's, like you said, first round pick. You're paying him like that. Dylan Radins, I think Dylan Radins is such a punching bag for Titans Twitter. I'm not sure I agree with that. I understand.
I think it's the Titans' fault that he's a punching bag.
Now, I want to get you on that for a second. So he played 12 games last year, only started one game. He only played 15% of the snaps all season long. That's 124
snaps. Is he actually active for 12 games?
12 games. How about 18% of the snaps, 58 snaps on special teams? Here's the numbers that I find interesting, though. He played his 3 games in which he played the most last year. He played 100% of the snaps against San Francisco. He played like 35% of the snaps against Kansas City. And he played like 30% of the snaps against the Colts. So the 3 games in which he played the most, especially the 100% of the snaps against San Francisco, win against the playoff team, win against the playoff team, win against the Colts. So the 3 games in which he played the most. There is no correlation, Zach. Chill out. I'm not suggesting that Dylan
Radins that he should have started the Bengals game is what I'm
He's the reason they beat the Niners, guys. It wasn't A.J. Brown. It was actually Dylan Radins. The point is that they plugged him into a difficult situation against San Francisco. He played 100% of the snaps, and they won the game.
Right.
So, again,
he was the worst offensive lineman on that game.
We can look back and look at the success rate and the pass block rate and all that stuff. The point is I think he did show some progress and development. I trust Mike Vrabel and the coaching staff to develop him. We know that he's probably going to play guard.
I think so.
So I think the expectation for me is that he starts double-digit games at left guard or is consistently in the rotation at left guard. And when he is in there, is a solid contributing player. He doesn't have to be great. He just needs to be a solid contributing player that plugs a hole.
If he's not a starter day 1, week 1, the Dylan Radins thing, I'm out on him. I don't think he'll ever be good. I don't think he'll ever start. He needs to come in.
All right.
He needs to come in this OTAs and wherever they put him, whether that's right tackle or left guard, or if they flip him around, he better damn well win a starting job in year 1 or year 2. He needs to be a day 1, week 1 starter. And if he's not, then they've screwed up again with a draft pick of the tackle variety or the offensive line variety. And they need to hope and pray that NPF can do something, because if you can't beat out Jamarco Jones, if you can't beat out a rookie, what good are you at this point?
Brewer, maybe. What if he is the starting left guard by game 5 or 6?
What took him so long to get there? Was there an injury?
I don't know. I'm just saying. This is hypothetical. I can say whatever I want.
Well, I know, but I'm asking you to clarify.
Let's say he starts the last 10 games of the year, and he's the starting left guard going into the playoffs. Are you okay with saying, all right, we've got our guy at the left guard?
I'd be then questioning the staff and trying to figure out what took him so long.
Well, he didn't play
but you can't use that excuse anymore. That excuse has gone out. That excuse is for last year. That excuse is
all right. That's fair enough. You used up your excuse on last year. That's fair. I agree. I would like to see him be the starting left guard day 1. I agree with you.
This shouldn't be a Nate Davis rookie season situation in
8 games or whatever. Okay,
in year 2.
And I was about to use that comparison.
But that was year 1, Nate.
No, I know.
And year 1, Nate had injuries. He had health issues. He never played in a preseason game. It is time for Dylan Radins to be whatever they thought he was going to be.
I think that's
a day 1, week 1.
I think that's a good way of putting it. I've got Elijah Molden written down here with some stats, but I'm not sure what we need to say about him. He played 16 games, started 7 of them. This is a guy, 70-something tackles. I think he gave up 41 completions on 61 attempts. He was drafted to do this, and he does this really well. He's physically developed when he got to camp last year as a rookie. He tackles really well. They can use him up. He was drafted to be Logan Ryan, and he already looks like Logan Ryan. So I think Elijah.
Well, I think what you want to see is not have Christian Kirk give him problems, or not have those mental mistakes where a deep ball is gone and because of a blown coverage that he's responsible for.
Just like a wide open,
which he had issues with, and that's okay. He's a rookie, but you want to see the middle of the 12-game stretch in the middle of the season where he was just lights out. You want to see that for 17 games plus playoffs.
I'm good with that.
I think people are kind of underestimating his size and his ability to be able to cover a tight end.
He is thick.
He's thick.
2 C's.
Well, and I don't the thing is does 2 inches between him and Dane Cruikshank really make that big of a difference with tight ends? Because let me say this. We saw him physically knock the ball out of bigger tight ends force fumbles or make tackles on bigger tight ends with ease. And I know a lot of people want to say that Dane Cruikshank was the tight end eraser, and I really don't have a problem with that. But there were games where, like the San Francisco game, he only played 11 snaps in coverage snaps. So you can't give him credit for erasing George Kittle when he barely played.
I think knowing his physical skills, like he's going to play bigger than his size. He's more physical than his size. I think you're right that asking him to be that designated tight end guy, I think is totally fair. I think Theo Jackson's going to bring some of that to the table.
And I also think that the next guy we talk about could bring a little bit of that too, because I think what they're going to do, because they love versatility, right?
Oh yeah, mix and match, baby.
I exactly think that. I think it's going to be a tight end eraser by committee.
A sentence uttered by all sports talk shows across the country.
And from here on in, everybody's going to be talking about
tight end eraser by committee. So that brings us to Monte Rice, their fourth-round pick. Late third-round pick there. 10 games last year, 4 games started, 36 tackles, played 179 snaps. That's about a quarter of the snaps on defense. He played 21% of the snaps on special teams. Here's what I thought was interesting. The 3 games where he played the vast majority of the snaps, where he played like 70% of the defensive snaps, were the Colts, the Saints, and the Texans. They allowed 83 yards rushing, 86 yards rushing, and 83 yards rushing. So, again, not suggesting that like Dylan Radins was the reason they beat the Niners. I'm just saying that the games in which he played the most, their rushing defense was pretty sound. And that's the area where we know he's the best. To me, it was his drops and his speed and his agility that was the question. And I think we're going to see a quicker, faster Monte Rice in camp.
I thought it was different because I viewed him as a guy that had the speed, the ability to be in coverage, more so than I had him being a run defender in the prospect in the draft process.
It's the quick twitch space ability that concerns me against like Alvin Kamara type guys.
Right. You're looking at a linebacker that is going to be he's a third down. He's your third down linebacker. That's what you want him to be because Zach Cunningham only played 21% of third down snaps. So they
might use him in a lot of different ways.
I think Monte Rice is going to be the guy that comes in on third down that pairs with David Long or maybe even Chance Campbell in certain rotations. But you want to see him his missed tackle percentage needs to come down. And that's the big thing because he had really struggled with some missed tackles.
Do you expect Monte Rice to play a pretty big role?
Yeah, I think he was trending that way.
Okay.
I think that you're talking about a guy that they viewed was someone that could contribute on the defense, and they were not scared to put him in.
Okay. I like both Molden and Rice to be fairly substantial contributors this year. I think Molden more so than Rice. Molden's the one I think is the safest of all of these, which brings us to Des Fitzpatrick. Played 4 games, 5 catches for 49 yards. Like expectations could not be lower for this guy. So on a team that desperately needs wide receivers, if he did anything at all to make himself better, he could find himself into a rotation. Like there's space for the rotation here. I also don't think they draft 2 wide receivers in this year's draft if they weren't concerned about Des Fitzpatrick's development.
Yeah, I will be interested to see that's the story of OTAs. What is Des Fitzpatrick at this point? Because to me, you can lump Des Fitzpatrick and you can basically put Des Fitzpatrick, Racey McMath all in one thing. I don't care what they do because that to me, they're not contributors and because they prove they mess up more than they do during the game. So to me, I don't want them on the field unless they prove something in preseason.
Big difference between McMath and Fitzpatrick. 8% of special teams plays for Fitzpatrick in those 4 games, whereas McMath played over 60% of the special teams.
Yeah, but they also drafted a bunch of special teams guys again. So, what good? I don't think they're in love with Racey McMath. I don't think that they're in love with Des Fitzpatrick. The onus is on those 2 guys to step in and prove everybody wrong.
Des Fitzpatrick and Racey McMath played a combined 200 snaps total last year on offense, which is not very many. Rashaad Weaver, 2 games last year before he got hurt, of course. We'll take the off-the-field stuff out of the equation altogether, but he only played 1 defensive snap in his first game. Then he played 11 the next game. This is actually a guy I think who's going to have a big year, big relative to his position, which I think will be the backup outside linebacker to either Dupree or Landry. Like I think he's going to play a pretty prominent role off the edge because I think they're very comfortable with what they saw. Again, what I saw in camp last year before he got hurt was a pretty physically powerful, impressive young guy, and I think he's going to be a good player for them.
Him and Danico Autry are going to be kind of used the same way, all over the line, all over the defense. And you're talking about, and we have frozen. Don't anybody freak out. We're frozen.
Oh,
just
we're
a little
frozen.
bit.
Oh no,
that's okay. We're getting new batteries.
Wait, literally the camera has been removed.
Yeah, we're getting a new. It's okay. We're getting a new battery for the camera. So you don't need to see me to hear that I think that Rashaad Weaver is going to be used a lot like Danico Autry is going to be placed all over the line. It doesn't matter whether you classify him as defensive end, outside linebacker, edge rusher. He's going to be everywhere. You're talking about a guy that's probably going to be around 5 sacks, I think, is where you should set your expectations for. See, we're back. No big problem. So we're back.
That was a pretty quick change there by
it's like
by Cast Collective. Very fast work.
It's like F1 pit stop.
You guys in your F1, man.
It's great if you're not watching F1.
I'm with you, dude. I'm with you. Do you want to
Weaver?
I like Weaver a lot. Yeah,
5 or more sacks is what you need to be getting out of Weaver, I think, to find it to be successful, because he's going to play a lot of snaps, barring suspension, because that's still hanging out there.
That's true. I think I want to see him make an impact on a pass play routinely in the game, and I think he can do that. So I'm actually he's one of the guys I'm actually more excited about. Brady Breeze was drafted, but every single snap he played was for Detroit. So, all right, you want to go Naquan Jones?
Naquan Jones. You want to see him to be used continually as a rotational starter, I think, because he's going in and out with Tier Tart. You want to see him take that next leap. He ended up with 2.5 sacks last year. Let's up it. Let's go 4.5 sacks. You're playing next to Jeffrey Simmons.
Yeah.
You got a great defense behind you as far as the defensive backs, the linebackers. He showed last year, because he's one of those guys that basically he was the undrafted free agent that Vrabel could not stop talking about.
Yeah.
And I think that based on those comments last year, based on his performance through games last year, I think it's realistic to expect another 2 sacks added to his total. I think that's realistic.
And I think that's fair. And if you're counting him as a part of this draft class, then you need to count him as part of the job John Robinson did building the roster. So
I mean, you got to count these UDFAs that come in and build, and that John Robinson actually develops. And I'm with you. Like, if I'm interested in what Dylan Radins is doing, what Caleb Farley's doing, what Rashaad Weaver's doing, and where Des Fitzpatrick and Racey McMath, did they give up seeing that there were 2 wide receivers drafted?
Yeah.
Are they now butthurt?
No, use it as motivation.
Yeah. Well, will they though?
That's what I'm saying. No, I mean, that's what you got to do.
That's what you got to do.
And Monte Rice, last year's draft class, I still think there's a lot of upside and potential for last year's draft class to have a really big impact on this team. So I think everybody likes to overreact to evaluating a pick like in the moment, and certainly the Wilson thing is never going to help John Robinson. But if you look at his drafts with Conklin, Henry, and Byard in 1 year, Davis, Adoree Jackson, Jonnu Smith, Jayon Brown another year, Rashawn Evans, Landry, Cruikshank when they only had like 4 picks in 2018, Simmons, A.J. Brown, Nate Davis, Amani Hooker, and David Long in one draft class. And then you go Christian Fulton and Merch and Chris Jackson. I'm not counting Isaiah Wilson or Darrington Evans, and that's not even his fault. Darrington Evans isn't really his fault, really. But if Farley and Radins, Molden, and Rice all play regularly, those are the picks that matter. Your top 3 round picks are the picks that matter. So
then you add in Rashaad Weaver, who's obviously,
he fell because
for all intents and purposes, Rashaad Weaver is going to be a viable starter going forward.
Yes.
And our rotation.
And he would have been
want to do it.
And he would have been like a 2nd round pick if he hadn't gotten in trouble because he was kind of a tool bag.
Yeah,
that's fine. It is what it is. Hopefully you deal with that and you learn your lesson and you don't do it again.
Right.
All right. Anything else? Are we good?
I think we're good. No comments, no questions.
No comments, no questions. 2-day hangover.
Yeah, so I was going to ask if you went to the rain game.
39 years old. I did. So I went with some buddies to the game on Saturday.
Oh, so you went with buddies. That's the 2-day hangover combined with the water.
Yes. So we stuck it out for about 45 minutes waiting for the game to come back on. We saw the 18 minutes. And then we were like, all right, we're out of here. And we walked down to a brewery. Then we walked to a bar that was not a brewery. Like I'm in the phase of my life where I like to sit at a table with a beer, like a nice beer, and like hang out with people and like be able to hear myself talk.
Right.
Not everybody in the group wanted to do that. There's always like 1 or 2 guys in the group that want to go to the place where like you have to scream to the person next to you.
I'm out.
You have to stand like this. You have to talk with your faces like not.
I'm at the point where I tell my friends, okay, you guys go do that. I'll be over here. I don't have to hang out with you.
So it was fun. It was great reliving my youth until like 1 a.m. for the first time in like 5 or 6 years.
Oof.
But I paid for it on Sunday, and I woke up on Monday. I was okay. I expected to be better. I don't think it's officially the first 2-day hangover of my life, but it was damn close, which means I need to rein it in, Zach.
I need
to get myself together.
Sleep is important. I think there's these double hydrating packs that you put in the water, chug it.
Can we get a sponsor out of the deal?
I don't know. I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head. But listen,
nice
you know what my friend does is that he'll take one of those, and because it's mainly just powdered electrolytes, he'll put it in a shot glass, put water, just put it in there, and basically it almost turns into a sludge.
Ooh,
and he just tastes it. But you get more electrolytes that way. They get in your system. You got to do that before, or 10 gulps of pickle juice.
I could use some electrolytes. Generally, I just hydrate before, like all day long. So we'll see. I'll tell you what I'll tell you what we're going to talk about on Thursday in just a second. But special thanks to Cast Collective being back in the studio. Great to be here, man. Great to actually see you
out the house.
Yes, and to see your face. To actually 2 people doing content on the internet together. Yeah. Go figure. That's amazing. Special thanks to Cast Collective, Cast_Collective on Instagram. You can check them out. Build KG, our wonderful sponsor, of course. That's buildkg.com. The Kingston Group is the name of the company. I should tell you that. Nashville's locally owned custom home and remodeling firm. They're amazing. They're fantastic people. Literally, I use them in my house, so I'm telling you, you can trust them. So go check out the Kingston Group. Football and Other F Words is the podcast. Broadway Sports Media is where all the writing takes place. Listen to all the other great shows across the 440 Sports Network: Fringe Element, Gold Standard, Club and Country, Lamestream Sports, all that great stuff. Just type in 440 into your podcast app. That just about does it. Coming up on Thursday, why the SEC will get rid of divisions and why you should love that idea. We'll do that on Thursday, along with all the reactions from OTAs, all the overreactions, I should say, from OTAs. His name's Zach. My name's Braden. Thank you guys for listening. This has been a football show, Monday edition, right here on the 440 Sports Network.